Over the last few weeks, there has been a debate going back and forth against Sebastian Morello's new book called Mysticism, Magic and Monasteries. And it's an interesting debate in the sense that it's really given some publicity to the book, which I highly recommend you buy. Before the pandemic, a few years ago, before I even was blogging or started to blog, I remember at the time discussing something online about traditional movement, but also about this book by Valentine Tomberg that's published by Angelical Press, and criticizing this book, and in turn criticizing Sebastian Morello at the time. This was many years ago, because he had promoted it unknown to me at the time. Now, I hadn't read anything about this book. I hadn't read it at all, didn't know anything about it, but I had kind of fallen into this kind of thing of criticizing without actually reading the book at the time. And so I took up the task of reading this book a few years ago. And, you know, as I've read other books on philosophy, Plato or Aristotle or Kant, I mean, Kant will put you to sleep, but no, I can't say I've read everything that Kant has written, but I have studied Kant, Descartes, or the major philosophers you would study when you study philosophy in a Catholic institution. Okay, so that's basically, you know, what I studied. And, you know, I always thought philosophy, you know, was a great, it was a beautiful subject, and my daughter has taken up the task of studying it as well, although she's finding it difficult sometimes. But again, it did make me think. It does make you think, and I think it's important in this rationalistic world that we do think. Like Sebastian Morello says here, according to Sebastian Morello, the Church possesses the most potent resources for mystical transformation. With the event of the Incarnation, the outpouring of grace it entailed, radically altering the cosmic order. But we would hardly know it today. A leaden blanket of rationalism, materialism, reductionism, all that goes by the name of modernity, has descended over the ancient treasure of divine wisdom. Myopic pastoral programs that only intensify the despoilment and quashing of the Lord's kingdom have eclipsed its innate appeal to the searching heart of modern man. In this ambitious and at times unconventional book, Morello proposes a pathway to escape that which we call the hex towards a rediscovery of the sacred mystery at the heart of reality. And we have a task at hand to capture the imagination of this world, to draw them into that mystery of knowing Christ, to draw them into that mystery of theosis, deification, union with God, personal relationship with Christ. And, you know, I remember as a child, I used to read C.S. Lewis, the whole trilogy, not the trilogy, but the whole set of books of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Not just that one book that became very famous, but there's a whole set. And, you know, being vaguely, well, I was enchanted by it, but I didn't make the Christian connection when I was a child. I made the Christian connection later on, but it wasn't very clear to me when I was a child that, you know, the Christian connection, because obviously we hadn't been taught the faith. To be clear, we'd never had a Bible. Nobody had actually spoken to us about the mystery of Catholicism, the beauty of Catholicism. We were taught things about the Catholic faith, but we weren't taught the Catholic faith, because many of those that were teaching us hadn't been taught it. They had been put through the drill as if they were in an army and they were following a sergeant and they were doing what they were told to do, but they hadn't been taught the mystery. We are the whole emphasis, the whole reason of being, that everything that the faith is to teach, is to bring you into contact with, I would say, the Sacred Heart. The mystery of the Catholic faith is an encounter of love with a God that loves us. Anyway, there's so much you could speak about this, but Lewis, captures our imagination. You have Tolkien with his trilogy, also captures our imagination. Priest, prophet, and king. Frodo, Gandalf, and Strider, the king that the Return of the King. And again, the whole mystery of our faith encoded into those books. And then you have writers like Valentine Tomberg, who, I've read this, and I would sit it on in my library beside my other books of philosophy, with Plato, Aristotle, and other thinkers that looked upon the world in a very magical way. Many people think philosophers just thought things. No, they thought about reality. What is reality? Questioning what is real and what is not real. How we're supposed to act, to live, and so forth. Who is God? Who's the first mover? The Aristotle's proofs of God existence. I think there's an Irish philosopher. Actually, there's a philosopher in Ireland. His name is Gavin Kerr. He studied in the same place where my daughter's studying philosophy in Northern Ireland. And, so we look at these philosophers that speak about the Aquinas' way to God, which, Aquinas, if you've ever studied him, heavily leans on Aristotle, not afraid to understand these concepts and actually dig into them, And that's the same thing as what Valentine Tomberg does with Christian Hermeticism, which is a school of thought that has developed and which he meditated on and he speaks about. And, we are such a rationalistic world. Trying to shut down Sebastian Morel, say, no, you're practicing this and you're doing that, and not giving him any constructive rebuttals, when Sebastian Morello is one of the brightest minds of our time. I'm not saying that to flatter him. I'm saying that as somebody who's been following him for a while, saying, look, this man has captured the imagination of so many people. And one thing I will say about Valentine Tomberg, and this might surprise somebody, Valentine Tomberg's legacy is massive. There are religious in the church because of Valentine Tomberg, priests in the church because of Valentine Tomberg, writers and intellectuals that have been spurred on because of Valentine Tomberg. Need I say Roger Buck, the writer here in Ireland, and his wife Kim Buck, Catholic because of Valentine Tomberg. This unknown, because this was published after he died. He didn't make a penny from it. He published it, and it was supposed to be published anonymously, and it was published after his death. He never saw anything of this. And yet this man, left behind his philosophical, religious thought, because he died a Catholic, he became a Catholic, he left the Theosophical movement and becomes a Catholic. He leaves behind his thought for us to meditate on, think about. And while as I said, as with any philosophical thought, I don't ascribe or agree with everything Valentine Tomberg writes about in his book, he does make you think. That's a big thing. He does start the wheels moving in your mind, to start to think. And once you start thinking, he starts to create ideas that can help you understand how we can come out of the crisis that we're living in this world. The other day, I have a prayer group every Tuesday, and as I said, it's a prayer group. Oh, it's a men's prayer group. The Men of St. Joseph's prayer group that I lead in an oratory here, a really miraculously constructed oratory in Cairns here in Ireland. And we were there praying the rosary, and two men walked in and sat down with us in the group, and there was another man already there. Now, as soon as these two men walked in, I had this overwhelming vision of somebody who had committed suicide. This instantly came to mind. I said, "Oh, there's something here. Something's happening here." And anyway, we started to talk, and I said to the men, "Look, has somebody taken their life in your family?" And the man confirmed to me, "Yes." And in front of me was another man that his son had died from suicide. So anyway, we had the back and forths of various conversations. Look, how are we dealing with these experiences? How are they impacting our lives? But most of all, how can we view life differently? Now, I always bring Christ into this conversation. Christ came, the Word incarnate came so that we can view reality differently. Think about it. And if we were able to understand reality as it should be understood, we were able to understand our problems as they should be understood, wouldn't we live differently? Christ came to give us right thinking, to challenge us. He really was an incredible, he is the master. If you were asking me, who is the greatest intellectual of all time? It was Christ, the greatest master. You cannot find greater knowledge than in the Gospels, in sacred scripture. Christ is the greatest master. He came to help us to live life differently, to understand the cross, which is the door through which we need to pass, all of us need to pass, so that we may be truly, united to God. And sometimes these experiences, they make me think, look, there's a bigger picture here than what I'm experiencing. There's a bigger mystery here than what I'm experiencing. And I've seen true miracles there. But I also think that in these conversations we have with people, we have to open their minds to something greater. And I thank Sebastian Morello for taking that initiative to expand people's horizons. There is to connect people's horizons a bit more to our great tradition, but also to draw us into the work that other people have done. And as I said, I would say of all of the philosophy books that I've ever read, Tomberg was one of the greatest. There's so many books that I've actually. COVID was the best time in my life because I read so much. I delved into so many topics and stuff, and started blogging at the time. So, COVID really inspired me. I know other people have negative impacts, but for me it was a great moment to think. And I really do encourage Catholics to go deep into your faith. And this is what we need. We need intellectuals. Some of our pastoral programs, our Catholic programs, are so dry, are so pastorally empty. We engage nobody. A bishop goes on social media and says, "We're looking for young people to come to a conference. Now come along to a conference of young people." I'm not trying to belittle a bishop who does this, but I'm just there thinking, Lord, does he actually understand how dry our pastoral and Catholic intellectual structures have come in Ireland? we're starting this new social media thing, and it's on this platform, it's on this, and I go on and I look at the videos and I say, Lord have mercy on me. Do they not? We have, and need I say more? Read through the Irish Synodal Synthesis document, the original one. It will go to show you how dry and utterly void is our pastoral and Catholic structures in Ireland, because we do not capture the minds of the next generation whatsoever. We've left them there to rot. In our so-called religious exam paper here, the junior cert, I was just looking at the questions that they had in the exam, and they were talking about Amnesty International and carbon emissions and the Muslim sisters of such and such, and I said to myself, like, Lord have mercy on us, what have we done to the faith in Ireland? And no wonder our kids don't believe. We have absolutely emptied our Catholic faith of its mystery, and not really challenged our kids to the next generation. And that's why this man, Valentine Tomberg, with his book, which was published after he died, anonymously, has reached places and done more conversions than many bishops in the church. And I don't know, because people have sent me because I'm one of the few Catholic bloggers that actually blog about Valentine Tomberg, because other Catholics that have read him are afraid to touch the topic. I said, no, I don't want to talk about this topic. It's a bit, people won't understand it. And so okay, but Valentine Tomberg has reached more places and converted more minds than some bishops in the church. And Sebastian Morello is doing the exact same thing. He's not sitting back there in my comfortable intellectual corner. I'm going to just sit here in my comfortable intellectual. I'm not going to challenge you. I'm not going to have a debate. These Catholics like Tomberg and Morello are need to push people to know, to challenge our minds. And that's what they're doing, in my opinion. And, I can't give them enough praise. Do more. Open our horizons. Create the debate in the church, because what we're doing at the moment is really a disservice to the Word, to our Lord, the great Master, the only Master that we need, really. And yet we're so incapable of leading souls to be discipled by Him. It is very sad, in my opinion. But it's my analysis of it, and as I said, COVID was a great time to get the wheels of the mind thinking, but how do we open up the imagination to the next generation? Will take, people to actually feed us something substantial for us to meditate on. Anyway, God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.